As usual.
Ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen,
I just barely made it. Okay.
the recording is already on. So I'm calling this meeting to order, first meeting of 2020 of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees. Bunky, I think you might not have been with us at the meeting where we welcomed Joan.
I think she was here the meeting before, but not
Yes,
in an official
yes.
capacity.
So I think everybody has met one another, and the rest of us are, I will call, seasoned veterans of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees. I am going to try to facilitate to get us out of here. Not that it's important to get out of here, but a couple of folks have other commitments. So they've got a hard stop around 11 o'clock. So we'll just be very focused and judicious.
I'll mention that my afternoon is going to be spent disassembling trees.
Oh, all of your trees?
That are not, they are not exactly alive. They are artificial at best. So let me start with saying, for the purposes of our roll call, those present are Tony Sharp, Susan Gay, Terry Eskew, Elise Burns, Bunky Margaret, and Joan Flaherty. I don't have any correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence? And Liz Lingo has joined us because she is integral to some discussion that we're going to have today. So I'm sorry I didn't pull up a chair for you, Liz. If you
I can get my own
do
chair.
I'm going to jump around because of our time constraint. I'm going to jump around on this agenda and start with, I think I want to go directly to new business. And the item under new business is urban forestry plan. And the reason I want to go there is because this terminology has been used, I think, with our group almost for months, about status of an urban forestry plan, need for an urban forestry plan. Y'all don't need me to retrace all of those steps. But I think it would be smart for us, as the budget process has already begun for the city of Rehoboth Beach, to kind of get some really clear grounding of what this is, what the status might be, where we're going with it, and the overarching questions that I have that I will try to facilitate us to getting them answered. So as we begin on urban forestry plan, I want to reflect back on our meeting in November, which was our last one for 2019. We talked about urban forestry plan being on this agenda. And one of the things that I think is the most important issue. Sorry. I'm trying to turn you. The most important issue, and I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. It's not you, it's me. One of the most important issues is to make sure that we are talking about what we really want and what we really need, and whether or not an urban forestry plan is the label of what will deliver to us what we really want and need. So that's an undercurrent of this discussion. But I think one way to start out is for me to ask Miss Susan Gay.
You put me on the spot.
Well, not put you on the spot.
No.
These are all public.
No.
These are all public discussions that I'm very committed, need to be very, very transparent, and what's another word for that? Very clear on expectations of what's going to get done, how it's going to get done, and if there is funding involved, what the reality of that is. So I'm going to ask Susan to give us a little bit of background of conversations she's had, conversations that she's been privy to, or that have potentially been public already, that may have an impact on our thought of urban forestry. And then I'm going to ask Liz, pardon me, to kind of guide us into our needs versus our realities. So Susan, take it away for a minute before we go much further.
Well, the short story is that a couple months ago, I actually met with Liz and with the city manager to request formally, that we put into the budget the creation of an urban forest plan, and it was driven by a couple of things. First, obviously the trees are very important here. We're in the midst of doing a new CDP, and while trees will be covered in that, I sort of viewed the urban forest plan as kind of a mini CDP that focuses just on trees, and we've never had one. And I know that many communities, including small communities like Stone Harbor, New Jersey, which is about the same size as Rhodes, do in fact have them. And I really thought that would underscore the importance of trees and, give us a plan. And I know that Liz has worked on one, but I also thought that, it's a time-consuming project, and I wasn't sure that she would have time to do it. So that was the reason for the discussion of having one. However, it did not make it anywhere close to the budget for this year.
Susan, before you...
So far, anyway.
I appreciate you being very clear with that statement, that
Yeah.
thus far,
Yeah,
it's not even,
not even
on the radar.
that's correct.
So, but let me ask
But
you
also have someday.
a question.
Yeah.
Can you drop back a little bit and talk about the meeting that you had relevant to this and what kind of feedback you were getting during that?
Oh, well, and Liz can speak to this too. I think that they are very supportive of the importance of the tree canopies of the city and having, and having a plan. And I will say this, that not only after that meeting, but after seeing some of the other things that we've talked about, like the rewriting of the zoning code or the need for traffic studies or other things, I'm painfully aware that, when money is tight, it's difficult to spend on research and writing as opposed to doing. So if we can have an alternate plan where we accomplish more, then we may actually come out ahead even without a formal urban forest plan. Or there may be, I guess it's a better way to say that is, there may be more than one way to skin a cat here, that we could look toward whatever whatever we do on a community-wide basis as part of a plan, without having to go to the extent of doing a formal urban forest plan. Yeah.
A question for you. When you, just a minute ago, you said it didn't even come in the budget. Were any numbers even proposed as far as a prospective number that would cost? It would cost?
No.
Okay.
And I think if I understand the process correctly, Liz, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, please, that before dollar amount requests actually get to the commissioners, there's a whole process that goes on
Absolutely.
internal at the staff level with the city manager, so that
Because they have their priorities
exactly,
that we don't even know about.
Exactly, so that the realities and the priorities are trying, all of this, as you all know from your private sector experiences, I'm quite certain you have to balance.
Right.
Everybody's competing for the same pockets of funding.
Piece of the pie.
Yeah, yeah.
The pie doesn't get any bigger.
Right.
Funky question?
A forest plan or city forest plan, whatever you want to call it, has never really been articulated with any kind of detail in the CDP, though.
Exactly. And
I guess what I'm getting, but I feel there is, if anything, basis or underpinning for that. At least it's been articulated in the last couple.
Right. Right.
So we're looking at probably 20 years, 15 to 20 years of at least it being, a bullet point, let's say.
Right. And I wanted to raise it to a new level.
Right,
because to focus on trees in a way that the CDP, can't. But I will say this, one encouraging thing is a lot of these plans, I had looked at some from other communities, and they start with a sort of an inventory of the trees, and I thought, oh no, we're going to have to spend tens of thousands just to do that. And Liz says that the Davy tree, she keeps the Davy tree study up that was done like 10 years ago up to date. So I felt like, oh, great, we're a step ahead. We don't have to take on that. And I think that's probably still true, that we have that information at least. But like I say, there are various ways to get to where, and we're already obviously doing a lot to raise the awareness for trees with the Commemorative Tree program. So we are already doing a lot, but anyway.
And this is where I want to delve or unpack this a little bit more critically, because from some of the discussions I've had with members of our committee, I wonder, and only y'all can answer this, the things that you feel are important, relevant to trees, and I'll just give a few examples of things I've heard in the past, are what is the planting plan for the city for each year or over a 3-year span? Where are they going to be? When is it going to happen? How is it going to be funded? What are we going to plant, etc.? What are the plans for the parks, where we have a lot of our public trees? And I think I can only speak for myself on this one. I don't have a really good grasp of how to articulate what our plan is for our parks, or how challenging that would be, and where it really stands in our priorities. Another one is, what are our plans for our lakes? We have 2. The third one is actually in Dewey,
Well,
Lake Comegee. We've got the east.
It abuts us.
Pardon?
It abuts us.
It abuts us?
Yeah.
Okay, we will debate that another time, whether it does or it does not.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of funding and so forth, I think our 2 primary lakes are Silver and Girard. I personally cannot articulate what our plan is, what our vision is, and I'm sure someone can, for the lakes. So what I struggle with is, first, trying to confirm what is it that we really want, that we think an urban forestry plan will answer for us. Because I would hate to be going along, and let's say we had nothing but funding. And Liz could, she could hire a consultant, she could get this beautiful plan, and we looked at it and said, well, it still doesn't answer the granular questions that we have. So I can only ask this group, what is your expectation of what you believe an urban forestry plan would answer for us, as opposed to possibly being more involved or close to or informed of the plans for the things that I just talked about, or maybe other things that you're interested in. Terry, you want to kick us off?
So I'm just going back to what you said to begin with. Is there currently, let's start with where we're at. Like Liz, as the arborist, is there yearly a plan for your priority list? Because as far as planting, maintenance, I mean, do you come up every year with a priority planting? Like you were just saying, people have asked you, where are the trees going, how many, what's the planting schedule? Let's start with what we have. Do we have something like that you
So-
do yearly?
It's reflected in the CIP. Unfortunately, a lot of it is not funded. So it's all going to be pushed back until it is funded.
But even trees, planting any new trees this year or any?
So large planting plans like redoing Bayard or the landscaping at State Road Triangle, those are part of the CIP. And that's how they're funded.
But take us, Liz, from what you're currently doing or have done on Rehoboth Avenue, and whether or not that is a one and done on Rehoboth Avenue, or do you have broader plans for Rehoboth Avenue?
Rehoboth Avenue, I think the mayor has reiterated quite a few times, we're not making any major structural changes.
Right.
So as much as we might replace certain species and reevaluate that, make substitutions and replace what dies, that's the extent of Rehoboth Avenue. I mean, we have some work that we have to figure out with the pavers, but there will be no major changes.
And I appreciate that. I've heard that myself. But can you articulate, because I'm trying to dovetail on what Terry is pushing us toward, which I think is good, is can we answer the questions with specificity? How many have we been able to plant on Rehoboth Avenue? How many are left? How many are teed up for the next round of planting or the round of planting after that?
It's all budget dependent. So Rehoboth Avenue and Munson were the top priorities, and then after that, it's Bayard. But it, like I said, it was not funded. So we'll do what I can within my existing budget, but it's not enough for those projects that we're talking about.
So how many did we just plant? The last time we talked about this, what's on our record in the meetings we've had in the past, that the information I got from you was potentially 60 plantings.
I think it ended up being 51 total.
Excellent, okay. And that's all I'm trying to get to, Liz. Can we, without regard to what's getting funded and what's not getting funded, can we be able to say, in a given year, we will be looking at planting approximately X number of trees, because that funding is already in your budget?
Well, my budget is one mass: tree planting, pruning, removal, landscaping. One really, and then I have like tools. So that's it. We got 40,000 to do all of that. So in general, the majority of your budget is spent on maintenance. And you should have as little towards removals as possible. And generally, I'd say like it's 50, maybe 30, and then the other 20% on removals. And we've, not the first year I started here, but since then we've been doing better and better in terms of that ratio.
So
But I think what you're getting at overall
help
is
me what I'm getting at.
so the urban forest management, pulling it back, management plan will set goals and objectives, and a goal or objective, I can't remember which one it would be plant 50 trees a year. However, the actual planting plan, what you're saying, okay, this year we're gonna do Stokely, second and third blocks. Next year we're doing Norfolk, second. And these are the tree species and these are the numbers. That would come from, hence after an urban forest management plan. So the urban forest management plan guides the creation of work schedules, planting plans, budgets, stuff like that. So it would include standards, procedures, big picture vision, but it wouldn't say we're planting 37 trees on state roads.
So let's stop there for a minute. What is it that's most important to us? The big vision that Liz just differentiated, one from the other, or the more granular plan, which is what is she able to do annually, and where is it getting done? Because if I'm hearing you correctly, Liz, and help me on this, they are two different things.
But you can't have the tree planting plan without the UFMP.
Well, that's not true, because we don't have, well, I shouldn't say it's not, in my mind, that how can that be true? Because we don't have one now,
Planting, right?
yet we are planting.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, that's-
and what I'm thinking about on a parallel track is, this is the kind of conversation that frustrates me so, and it's me.
No, it's you, it's
No,
everybody.
It's me,
It's everybody.
primarily, in my head, and if you all feel that way, it makes me feel a little bit better, that what is the point of the discussion around the urban forestry plan, if indeed we know the outcome, which for this year budget and maybe for the foreseeable future doesn't even make the bottom cut, the first cut of the budget, because of other higher priority needs in the city. So what is it that we're really left with to work on? Because when we first got together in April of 2018, we talked about, we didn't want to work on stuff that didn't have a tangible outcome. And we've done, I think, a really good job thus far. You can walk down in the lobby. You can attend our seminars. I mean, you can do things that are tangible because of this group. But now when we get to the urban forestry plan, I get very concerned that we could be chewing up our time and it doesn't really meet our expectation. So y'all are gonna have to help me through this.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, this is nothing new,
Yes.
of course. But I look at this whole issue as how is it that the city in any form articulates what its policy is relative to trees. And I'm just trying to hang my hat on certain aspects of it. And right now, we are a tree city, which is kind of just a boilerplate kind of thing. I mean, it's a certification or something, and I don't think it has any real meaning other than maybe some PR meaning and maybe some signs around town and stuff like that. We have discussion or articulation, let's say, in our comprehensive development plan, but that is really just, you know, a document at this point. It doesn't really been promulgated into being policy, other than we do have a tree plan for the protection of trees and all that kind of stuff, which is again, you know, a somewhat fluid document that has been changed over the course of time, and its enforcement has been sort of changed and so forth over time. I mean, what I feel like whatever we talk about with regard to a forestry plan has to be, dare I say, rooted in some kind of policy, and that policy has to be rooted in some kind of vision for the city. Now,
Wait, clarify something for me.
Okay.
And is there an and that goes with that? And if you're going to be serious about these things, it
Right.
has to translate into budget dollars.
True. Then it has to be, you know, enforced or you know,
Implemented.
you know, implemented, you know, that kind of thing. And that I understand in the real world, subject to, you know, other things competing and so forth and so on. But I would at least be happy with having that articulated, and that's something that I think has been lacking, because it ultimately is a political issue. It goes back to, you know, the schism that we have between what we think of as community rights versus you know, private property rights, and it's never really been, you know, a strong, solid bedrock issue for this town, even though it is one of the things about this town that makes us unique, especially for seaside towns, to have a tree canopy and so forth and so on. Now, I think there has been articulation, at least at some point, with regard to tree canopy goal, and I think that number was 30%, 33%, 40%. It was a number like that.
Right.
But again, you can make any number you want. How do you measure it? You know, how do you report on it? How do you assess what your goals are? And all these other things. So all I'm saying is, if we decide to have a tree plan, we have to assess whether or not the tree plan is effective. And I would think probably largely, you know, with budget constraints and everything else, it would probably be one of those things that would not be necessarily effective, just in the means that we do it. And then it's a matter of, do we want to put more resources to this and so forth and so on. But right now, we really don't have much of anything, you know, other than good faith in some regards and some, you know, some line items in the budget and so forth and so on. But I would just say, if this group is supposed to you know, to carry out our mission or whatever, and is somewhat involved in relating with the public or whatever, or the residents or whatever, it's the importance of trees and so forth and so on, and we go on and do that, and we do the things that we do and all that kind of stuff, which I think is valid. But do we have to also do that to engage the commissioners or the public and the commissioners in order to make this a higher priority or something that we feel is critical for the city?
I don't know.
That's
what I'm asking.
I feel that way, and that's why I serve on this group, you know, but this is something that takes, some kind of kinetic energy to get it moving, it's a difficult process. So how do we go about doing that?
Well,
I just felt like I just made this whole vision bigger.
or my question is that what we want to do?
Mhm.
Is it?
Right.
Is that the battle?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the battle for 2020 that we want to put our energies toward?
Do you want me to read like a little thing from the toolkit about what it actually is? There's everybody on the same page of what the UMFP
Yeah,
is.
I've seen the toolkit. Have you seen the
Yeah.
toolkit?
Okay,
not
so everybody's on
necessarily.
the same page. We know what it is, what it does.
That's okay.
Well,
And just on background, Liz, if we had to engage a consultant to come in and do that, about what is the, Susan, you may know.
I don't know.
What is the price point that comes in at, just a range
So
maybe?
the company I work for, we did them. And it really depends on the level of detail you want and how much the community is going to be involved, how much feedback they're going to get. But I mean, anywhere from 10 on up to 100,000.
Okay. And I keep trying to, I guess I'm getting really in the weeds, but the weeds is, I think it's to Bunky's point. If our mission is to preserve, protect, and grow, what are we going to do by the end of 2020 that would enable everybody around this table to say, we did something tangible in 2020? What is that? Is it the urban forestry plan that Liz can take us through that may or may not give us what each of us is looking for? Because it may not drill down to the level that one around this table might be looking for. Am I making any sense?
Sure.
Yes.
But
Okay.
the other question is, I mean, we are an advisory group, and we are advising the mayor and commissioners. I mean, I think the commissioners along with the mayor, are we not?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so.
Yeah,
Well, we've
yeah.
got two
Gotta have-
commissioners.
Yeah, right. No, but I'm just saying it's the mayor's
Yeah, the
advisory.
mayor's.
Yeah.
thing,
No, right.
So,
No,
so
okay.
we're not just
No.
speaking to the mayor. I don't
No.
think. So, in order, it seems to me, in order for us to make an impact with that, or to be persuasive, or to make them feel strongly about this, and commit and make a commitment on the part of the city, I think I think we have to bring the public involved in this. So in order for them to feel like we're this group here
feedback.
has an agenda. Is that agenda shared by everybody else and all that kind of stuff? So I think in a way we have to appeal to them and come, but obviously this is a public meeting and people can listen to it and all that kind of stuff. But I still think we have to bring people along with be able to show that this is a critical issue and important and critical for the city. So I feel in a way we have we can come up with like a draft a forestry plan, but I think along with that we have to also have it be something that people can understand why we're doing this and what's important about it and so forth and so on, which makes it a much more a more difficult problem or a much broader problem to do, but I think that's needed.
Well, and while we're talking, I don't want us to lose track of the fact that everybody, especially Susan, took great time and effort to get a consensus from all the commissioners that green infrastructure is just as important as every other
I
aspect.
almost feel like you should redeliver that talk. I mean, I've been meaning to go, I'm intending to go back and listen to it myself, just so that I have some things to say.
Well, I'm thinking about, like, based on our meeting here today and maybe our February meeting, I may come back to a commissioners meeting.
That would be wonderful.
But that's a whole, well.
Well, it would be. I mean, it really would be great.
But
We all need
I
to
feel like, let me digress for just a second. And it's relevant to this green infrastructure, because I feel like I'm not letting Liz talk enough But upcoming.
Always the problem.
Upcoming, yeah, it's usually a problem with me. Upcoming is a public workshop on Phase 2 Lake Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, we have talked about several times if we via Liz has been at the table for the development of plantings and so forth that are gonna go on with that big project of Phase 2. So the public workshop, I believe, is coming up at the end of January.
27th.
It's already noticed to the community, and I wanted to just have Liz validate for us that she has been an integral part when it comes to the plantings and the design, et cetera, for especially this piece of city property over by the breakers.
Yeah, we've made good progress. We don't have the design finished yet, but we do have a designer ready to go. But since we're not starting till the fall, it's not imperative. I mean, the landscaping won't even be till not this spring, but the next spring.
Spring of '21.
Yeah. So we have a good year.
But I think it's a really good example that we got our consensus from the commissioners. Liz is plugged in, and only she can assess if she's plugged in at the right level and at the right time.
Well,
But what that project, when it's completed, it will be another tangible visual of what the whole reason that I believe she's going to be at the table from the get-go is because we did go to the commissioners about consensus, about how trees are going to be, they're just like any other part of paving or whatever.
Absolutely.
And it is an opportunity for us to either have some canopy trees planted if possible, and to explain if it is not possible, why. You know, because these are projects that are being invested from the ground up. So, I mean, we've got a nice one coming that's in the pipeline, but it really, it's starting to shape up for me in my head. How do we really get to, and Bunky, maybe you have a better sense for this as well as everybody else than I do, how do we get to a decision on where we spend our efforts, our time in 2020, other than the things we've already adopted? You know, the Arbor Day is an annual event now for us. It's going to be expanded. It is on our agenda, but our leads are not here today, so we won't spend a great deal of time on that. Our commemorative tree, you know, Terry, maybe it would be a good time for you to give us just a quick little update on how that's going.
Sure. Do you want me to do that right now?
Sure.
So currently, just real briefly, we have to date 35 leaves that people have contributed in the total amount of $20,400. And we have two things that I would recommend. So that's just kind of the numbers right there. What happened, just to get a little bit detail, we have 20 people that have contributed at the $350 level. We have 4 people who have contributed at the Tier 2 or the $600 level. And we have 11 people who have contributed at the Tier 3 $1,000 level, which is kind of surprising because when we started this whole thing and we were trying to allocate the number of different tiers, I personally, you know, we have half as many at the $1,000 level as the $350 level. So that's really good news.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So that comes to $20,400 as of January 10th. Two things that I was going to recommend, because I've been talking to some of my neighbors about contributing, I think what's needed, and I don't know how we do this, but I think that we do need to update the city website so that we have a picture of the tree, so that people don't think, a lot of people think it's a three-dimensional tree in the lobby with leaves hanging from it. So I think we need to update the website somehow. I don't know who we go through for that, with a photo of the tree explaining that the leaves are on the wall of the main lobby of City Hall. And the other thing is, I think we need to do some kind of an update on our website because of these, how many people now, of these 35 contributors, you know, a lot of these people are saying, okay, what did you do with the money? Where did it go? What did it buy? So I think we need to do some kind of an update on the website and say, you know, for example, in November, however many, what did you say, 51 leaves?
51, yeah.
51 trees were planted, X number along Rehoboth Avenue, X number along Munson Street. And then maybe just mention something about, with future funding now that we have additional funds, our next, you know, our next project would be on whatever.
Well, and I want to clarify with Liz, since the thank you letters that go out to the contributors clearly say from the mayor, your donation directly supports tree planting on public property, period. That is a very definitive statement. The 20,000, Liz, that we have raised thus far, would you say that's already been used or allocated to you, or it is sitting somewhere?
That's a better question for, that stuff is very complicated to me, but it can only be used. I did have it specifically earmarked to only be used for tree plantings. It's not part of like the general fund.
Right.
It can't be
Yes,
moved
yeah,
around,
Yeah.
Excellent.
which
But-
was very important, but in
But
terms
It can be used for your tree planting. I'm just saying, they could allocate that to, you know, the tree planting that you do as part of your budget line, you know.
yeah,
It's-
so
I'm just saying, it's fungible in that regard.
I don't think I'm not sure if they have an account. I've asked Bert about it, but it's like a 15-minute explanation. I'm afraid I
Yeah,
didn't
right.
retain very
It's
much of
one
it.
of
That's
those
not my area of expertise. But I think a lot of times, and if you've sat through enough budget, and Susan too, and the last one where Bert went on about, oh, it's not in this actual account sitting there, talking about other money, like it's.
Yeah.
And I'll-
And I guess
Restricted funds,
my more straightforward question is, has the 20,000 yet to be utilized in any way? And I can take that up with Bert, if that's the easiest way to do this.
Has the what been utilized?
Has been
The
spent.
20,000,
Has
has
any
it
of
been
it been
spent?
used?
Okay.
Well-
Has any-
I thought
has
I thought
anybody-
it planted those 51 trees.
So I haven't paid for
No.
them yet, so
But when you do, but Liz, when you do pay for them,
I'll have to talk to Bert.
of where to get the money from? Or
Yes.
are you
How?
believing it will be funded out of your regular budget?
No, that money specifically, how to use it to pay that invoice.
Okay, okay. Because that could result in us going back down to zero in our fund.
Sure.
So it begs the question for me that what is our plan, other than what we're
Yeah.
currently doing? How do we actually rebuild it again? And the obvious answer is we continue to get contributors. But it goes to the things you're saying, Terry, we need to be more assertive, either in public meetings or through mailings or the
Yeah.
website to get
Yeah.
people to go there, is
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
talking
my
I
about.
think
question.
I think
How
it is
do
a
I-
good idea. I was just looking
How
at
do I
the way it's
proceed,
on the
you know, how do
site.
we proceed on
Yeah.
updating the website? Who would I go to?
Well,
to
it would
talk?
go to Chris
Chris,
Johnson.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and I do think it's a good idea to put the pic
Yeah.
photo of the tree
Yeah,
down.
and
Of
also, I
course.
think people are expecting an update.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
to say,
No, no,
As of,
right,
you know, we've already raised over 20,000, because we have to keep generating interest in the program, because
Right, right,
there's a lot
exactly.
of people we haven't reached out to yet,
Well,
because they're not aware.
and as I told Terry the other day, I've got several people in the pipeline, but I'm not reaching out to them yet. Just because I think it's a better thing to do when all this is smooth. You know, for like 2019 now, to me, what our contribution was 20,000 to the city, which either paid in full, Liz, or in part to the Rehoboth Avenue plantings.
Probably paid all of Rehoboth Avenue, honestly.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because we're gonna need to be able to articulate as a group, did we spend it all? Did we spend part of it? And did it cover what we needed? Because to me, if we raise another 20 or 30,000 in 2020, what I'm trying to get to is if our next spot in the city
It's Bayard.
is Bayard Avenue, and we say, okay, we are where we need to be for the moment on Rehoboth Avenue, and we're moving over to Bayard, if we can do it with 30,000, then to me, we could potentially have a different kind of project to work on, which would be this committee trying to get behind and pulling every lever we can with the Country Club Estates homeowners, with the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association, to get more attention to our fund. So it's just, these are the things that to me are happening on a parallel track. And where I really want to be by our February meeting is not that anything will stop, you know, we will continue doing what we need to do, is where are we putting our major emphasis and time in 2020? Terry?
I just have something I was going to point out, going back to, so I think this whole commemorative tree information right now, I think I have my working orders to go meet with Chris and try to get some update on the website.
Sure.
So I think we're kind of putting that to bed. Let me go back for a minute to this whole community forestry management plan, because when I talked to Susan briefly about this, there's a community in New Jersey called Stone Harbor. I don't know if anyone's visited there. It's north of Wildwood.
No, but I think you've mentioned it in here before, but go
And
ahead.
the reason I'm mentioning it very quickly is if the people in our committee, if you go to stoneharbornj.org and you click on their community forestry management plan, the reason I'm pointing this out is, and I think Susan has done a lot of research on this, I've looked at many community forestry plans, just because I like to do a lot of research. And the reason I mention this one in particular, I would refer you, all of you, to read their plan, and this is why. They are a barrier island in New Jersey. They are 1.8 square miles. Their full-time residents are about 900 to 1,000 people. They are dealing with the same environmental conditions that we are, and they actually back up on the other side to a bay. So they're dealing with ocean environments and an inland bay. Have you been to Stone Harbor? Okay. So the only reason I mention this is I did speak to their borough administrator, who is the contact person. And the reason I mention this, if you folks would at least read through this, it says it's 54 pages, but probably 15 or 20 are just, you know, whatever. But the thing about this is they're in the same kind of environmental situation. They're a very small town. They're very limited full-time population. This will kind of give you an idea of what a small town urban forestry plan looks like. And the other thing is that when I talked to them, they used a company called the Lomax Group, which is a consulting group. Are you familiar with them, Liz? Have you heard of them? Lomax. They did their plan. Now, when they updated this plan, which is a 5-year plan, it only cost $4,500, but it was only $4,500 because it was an update plan from their previous one. So anyway, the reason I just refer you to this is they have some really excellent phrases in here that kind of talk about what this plan is oriented to. And that's why, and the reason I refer this is because maybe at our next meeting, once we kind of read this, which is a really good prototype, similar to our environment, then we can talk to Liz, because if I heard Liz correctly at the beginning of this meeting, she was saying that the urban forestry management plan kind of dictates what she does. And, you know,
Does it?
It should, if we had one.
It should.
It will.
You
It
see,
will.
I'm not
If
going in this circle.
Yeah.
It should if we had one.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have one, and
Yeah.
this
And
is
we-
where
and we're
I
not
become the pit bull of the table.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have something, yet we are delivering at a certain level, we need to make a decision, and I think it's a good thing to we can make it in February. And Liz, please weigh in here. If we want to, with the help of our 2 commissioners, lobby the rest of the group that this is so important to us, it needs to be funded or defended as to why not, possibly putting us in a situation where we raise the money. I mean, we have a program where we raise money. It does say that it is directly for planting.
Well, this program is. This program is for planting, commemorative tree program.
We have,
Yeah, for
I'm not
planting
suggesting
alone.
we do another different program, but
Okay.
that's all in the, really in the weeds. The issue to me is, we don't have this now. And is it, Liz, so critical to us? Not that it isn't essential to what you do, but is it of a critical nature that in the absence of it, we are handicapped with what we do in the city with the funds that we have?
So you guys know that I've done a draft of it.
Yes.
So it's not like we're just flying blind. I've still been, we are still doing these things. Let me see, one goal, enhance awareness of the value of trees in the urban forest through community involvement education. So then one of the objectives is increase community tree events. And one of the actions under that was ramp up Arbor Day.
Right.
We're continually doing that, right? So we're already doing things. Either we have done them since I did this draft, or our conversations have informed and helped put that into our actions. So it's not like we're just, doing these random things, because that is one thing that struck me when I started here, specifically tree planting in the parks. You go to Lake Gerard and there's like these random tiny little non-native, like a purple plum in the middle of like an open space. And I said, okay, well that's great, somebody planted a tree, but why this tree, why here?
Yeah.
Right? So that because of lack of a plan,
Well,
right?
and going back to what you said, and you asked her the question, are we handicapped? It sounds like we're not handicapped. So but referring people to this on our committee to just read through this, and this is much more concise than a lot of other communities. Going back to my point is, you might read through this, and my feeling is, if we're not handicapped by not having this, do we really need to spend our time as a committee? I mean, I don't know where we would ever get the money. It's a lot of time, and frankly, we would have to hire a consultant. So my personal feeling is, if we're not handicapped by not having this, and like I said, just read through it. I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts when they, at the next meeting. Personally, I'm not sure we should focus our time and energy on this. But I mean, because it sounds like we're not handicapped, Liz.
To an extent that an important part isn't just what's in here, because that's guiding my actions, but these are things that are in my head that I've put down here. But this determines, it gets you support from the public, from the commissioners, from this committee, from other committees. We are all on the same page, okay? And here's how much this is gonna cost, here's who's doing it, here's when it's the status or when it's completed. So we would have allocated, if the goal is to plant 100 trees a year at this cost, it's right there. This is presented to the commissioners. 2 years ago, you agreed to this. Why is it not funded?
Right.
Okay?
If we can't even get enough money to plant trees, how are we gonna get money to hire a consultant for $20,000, $30,000 to set up, and basically it's another umbrella. It's another umbrella that says this organization, this part of the city does this person in the city does that. So my personal feeling is, that's why I'm saying I'm reaching out. Just read it, see what you think, and see if we really need it to spend time as our committee. Because like you said, it goes back to our mission statement. Is this part of our mission statement?
Well, and Susan referred to it, I thought, in a very succinct manner when she started speaking about, I think the way you put it, Susan, and help me, was doing rather than writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
But it's, I'm not sure it's going to satisfy Liz's needs, Bunky's articulation of why these plans are important. I'm not discounting that they're not important. What I'm trying to really beat to death is, we only have so many people and so much time and so much energy. Where are we going to put it? Do we want to fight a budget battle? Do we want to, which battle do we want to fight? I guess if I really tried to boil it down, what is the most critical thing that will satisfy our group as we look back on 2020, that this is what we accomplished in 2020?
Could I make a recommendation, maybe at
Sure.
the next meeting, when maybe we have more people, is we just ask each person, once again, we're starting a new year, we only have 12 hours of meetings, actually 11 hours of meetings in the next year, because last year we didn't have a December meeting, so we had 11 hours of meetings. And there again, we have to focus on, what's the best use of our time, and are we, in my mind, I always go back to, are we achieving quantifiable goals? Because personally for me, I want to get to the end of each year and say, okay, what have we done? What is quantifiable? What has been the effect of our mission statement, which is to increase and preserve the tree canopy? So maybe at the next meeting, we should all just sit and figure out, what do we want to, what are quantifiable goals for next year? And personally, my feeling is looking through all these different tree ordinances, this is a lot of time and a lot of management money. And I wish we had the money. I wish we had $100,000 to hire.
I wish we had an entire department
Yeah.
of Liz Lingo.
Yeah.
However, then I come back and balance that with, we're only 1 mile
Exactly.
square, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, at least.
Liz, that 40,000, I'm assuming you're asking the 40,000 in your budget.
My
When you're,
budget, okay.
yeah, when you're asking for money every year, I'm assuming it's a lot more than 40,000 that you've put together, your proposal. And you're ending up with 40. Do you say, well, with $40,000, that means I can't plant any new trees? It really means I'm just going to
Refer you
maintain.
to the budget you can see how the budget meeting goes. I mean,
Yeah, but
it's just
are you
random.
articulating that you need more money for trees? Or are you more focused on maintenance? I'm just wondering. And I can go back and look at that budget meeting, but I'm
No, I
just
don't
wondering,
really know how to- I don't really.
what are your priorities? When you put
our
your budget
top
number
priority is
together?
maintenance. Always. It should always be maintenance. Planting should not be the top priority. Which I've already said in terms of the budget allocation.
I'll make a suggestion that, before the next meeting, I will schedule a meeting with Bert so I can get a better understanding and hopefully share that understanding with you as to how the budget works with regard to this area. Because my other question is, okay, it isn't like what we have collected is our little bucket to play with, I think it does actually kind of go into the somewhat general fund. It might be earmarked for certain activities and so forth, but I want to know exactly the mechanics of that. Because we also have the tree mitigation.
Right.
And from my gathering, that's sitting there. Has that ever been?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I didn't
and I'm
wanna-
not gonna say
I
this
didn't want to bring
again.
that up
Yeah.
again.
I'm not
It
gonna
gets
say
so
this again to
gets
this
so
group.
confusing.
But it's not to me, because, and maybe Liz, we're gonna have to have an offline discussion maybe, because I continue to hear that statement from the mayor.
Yeah.
And I've said that publicly here
Yeah,
many,
right,
many
yeah,
times,
yeah.
that he views the mitigation fund as just sitting there.
Right.
So, if someone said to me, okay, you're gonna have an extra 25,000, whatever, that's coming out of our fund every year, if that's what we were to decide our goal was. If someone said that to me about my house and said, okay, for every single year, tell me what you're gonna spend that $20,000 or $25,000 on.
Exactly.
Isn't that something we could build in, Liz, to a guaranteed, not guaranteed, but contingent upon fundraising efforts?
Yeah.
We will always have, because this letter says planting. It does not say maintenance. So this is going for planting. That's
Yeah,
what
but
this
you
whole
could
thing was
also- I
about.
think you could infer that if a tree falls down and you have to remove it, and then you plant another tree in replacement, that's kind of maintenance. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, you can frame that. I'm just saying, you can
Sure.
frame that.
I take
however
your
you
point.
want. Yeah,
I
yeah,
take your point on
yeah,
that.
right.
So, Liz, I think, to me, all roads lead back to, can we, and y'all help me, can we accomplish planting plans supported by estimated cost that we can articulate, this is our goal for 2020, 2021, and 2022?
Sure, if you put together a planting plan, we can take it to the commissioners with the costs and say, here we go.
But how do
Because
we-
we're
how
not
do we ma-
fighting the public every time we plant a tree in front of their house. I'm not moving it. That's the hard part is everybody's for it until it's right in front of them and they think that a leaf is gonna blow on their vehicle or fall on their front stoop. So when we have a put together plan that says 2021 here, 2022 here, and Bayard, for example, if we raise 10,000 for commemorative tree, maybe we do phases.
Mhm.
So the commemorative tree can pay for the trees. The city landscaping budget can help with the landscaping, and maybe we do two of the strips instead of the 6 or 7.
But the next spot in town that you would say is the priority spot is Bayard Avenue.
Yeah, we had a focus on the gateways.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Tony, all you're asking is, if right now somebody came in here and walked in with a check for $20,000 and said, I would like this to go to the Commemorative Tree Fund, I know it's for planting only. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking Liz, okay, if you had 20,000 right now, can you just show us a plan of where those trees would be planted and how many they would be? That's what you're kind of asking.
Yeah, because to me, every year, if we had a goal to raise minimum of
Yes.
20,
Yes.
that funding should,
Mm-hmm.
Rehoboth Avenue, check.
Right.
Bayard, check. I don't know where you'd go next, but you would, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, then we get done the easy ones then, really, if you think
And I
about
guess
it.
my question is, we've been replacing trees, so, on Rehoboth Avenue, Munson. Were any of those trees new trees? Are we still talking about Bayard Avenue, are we replacing dead trees? Or have we,
Well, if you
can
look,
we
if you
say,
look
do
at
we
a
have
city,
a
I
net,
mean, if you look
do
at
we
a
have
city,
a net 10 new trees in the
I
city?
don't think we can take this sort of, narrow focused
know.
view of, well, this tree replaced that tree, I mean, it's the collective trees in the
No,
city.
but Funky, I think what she's asking is, for example, if Bayard is the next priority, somebody determined that that was a priority location.
Right.
So if Bayard, for example, if we do achieve, say by June, we have $20,000, so we know maybe in the fall, we can use that money to plant trees on Bayard. I think what you're asking is, can we be specific and say,
Yeah.
what would that buy? And is that replacing, like, for example, Liz, like you mentioned Bayard, so on Bayard, are there trees that need to be replaced, or are you focusing on areas that need new trees?
So are you talking about,
The median.
well,
Wherever
yeah,
it is on
it's
Bayard.
the
Well,
median,
whatever
the
you're-
sides are
Yeah,
so
whatever you're
narrow.
talking about, we don't know what you're
I
talking
think
about.
is that what
So
you're trying to say?
You're focused on the medians, okay.
Yes,
so
the
at least that
medians,
that
yeah.
helps. Okay.
So are you trying to ask about new trees?
Yeah, are we, is right now, are our monies going towards replacement trees or new trees? I think, or
I don't
both.
really understand what is new,
Well, a
like,
newly
new
planted, a
location.
new.
Yeah,
a
like
new
there's an area you
location.
want to plant new trees.
like where never ever was there a
Yeah.
tree?
No,
Yeah.
Well, to
Where
our
there isn't one
knowledge.
now.
or maybe there's a part of Bayard that never had trees. I don't know, I haven't gone down
Well, like, so
there.
you go down
you know?
Bear Median and it's kind of like Rehoboth, there are several empty spots, but at one point in time, somebody had the ill-conceived idea to plant Kwanzaa and flowering cherries there. So,
I just think one day
Yeah.
we might get the question, how many new trees have we planted in the city?
Yeah.
And maybe you can't-
I'm
maybe
just
you
questioning
can't-
whether that's
maybe
a
you can't.
valid
Well,
thing.
maybe you can't dissect it,
Yeah,
but
But
yeah.
if
those
it's
are
a
the questions
replacement
we
for
can
something that was,
but you're,
non-native or non-desirable, isn't that just as good as a new one? I don't know.
it's not whether or not it's good, we're
Yeah.
getting at our vacancy rate. Like, if you look at an inventory, they give you a vacancy rate, number of
Yeah.
empty spots in the street.
Okay,
So I
okay,
think that's
okay.
kind of what
Yeah.
we're getting at, that
Well, then
say,
maybe there's a better way for us to answer the question.
so
if
you
we
have
get it,
100
Right.
empty
We just
spots in
need
the
a better
street.
answer.
Well, and that's part of where I'm coming from. I sometimes struggle with how to articulate
Yeah.
Right.
what
Yeah.
we're accomplishing, but through teasing out information from Liz and working with Chris, we could tell our story in a
Yeah.
more powerful way
Mhm.
of what we've
Yeah,
been able to
you do.
accomplish.
Mhm.
Because what I
Yeah.
fear
I mean, that's
is
what I'm getting at.
Liz
Thank
coming
you.
up against
Mhm.
Bayard and the median. And some folks may feel that bloom of flowers in the spring on very old trees that I think have been there for some time in the median.
I'd say they're probably at oldest 30 years old.
That's well,
That's pretty old.
that's pretty old.
Not in the tree's life.
I know,
Right,
but in
right,
my
right,
life,
but-
in
but
my life,
human
for
life,
as a
I
human,
mean,
but they've been there for some time. When those are taken down and redone for what, let's say they were all going, let's just, for practical purposes, not saying, this is just an example. If they were all taken down and a better specimen was selected and redeveloped that whole median, and it cost X number of dollars, I would think if that's a priority gateway into Rehoboth, which it is, that would be a wonderful place to spend our next round of funds from the commemorative tree. If this group, along with Liz, along with commissioners, said, well, that sounds great.
I'm just curious about when you say empty spots in a street, is it your inventory, your tree inventory plan that gives you that information? Where it identifies, these are the areas that we have the following types of tree, you go by species, I assume. And
Yeah, so the
you have dead
inventory-
trees that have been removed or gone for many years or something, so that tells you there's a spot there.
Vacant, yeah, like when Davey did the inventory, vacant was one of the, you would have, you know, Acer rubrum in front of 209 Stokely, 211 Stokely, vacant.
Okay,
So you have vacant, and they did vacant just based on spatial, like sometimes you really have to go there and look because there's a fire hydrant or something else like that.
Driveway.
Or somebody's front door and you can't plant it right in front of that, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, they give you a baseline of vacant. I want to say it was quite a few.
We are right at 11 o'clock,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna ask Susan, any final thought from you before you excuse?
No, I
for the
just,
day?
I apologize for having to bug out, double booked today.
It's okay.
And also, it looks like I'm gonna be in California at the February meeting, so I won't be here, but I'll be tuning in.
Well, of course you will, and we'll assign you projects.
Okay,
Because you're not going
But
to.
since I'll be tuning in, you don't really have to do that.
We really will. It's as though I will think of you, and we'll be very clear what we've assigned you.
Okay.
So next steps for us, Terry's given us one, which is to go to Stone Harbor, New Jersey, to their site, and take a quick look. Liz, what can we do, if anything, relevant to this year's budget process, or do you feel that's a non-starter, as Susan was describing for this year?
I don't think there's any reason for you guys to get involved in it specifically. I mean, especially they're still at the beginning stages of fighting over various items, so we don't really know right now, honestly, what's gonna get passed and not.
And another follow-up for us is, as many of us who can come to the public hearing, workshop, on the
27th.
phase 2 of Lake Avenue, or if you talk to your neighbors,
Okay.
make sure they're aware.
What days?
I don't know.
Oh, hold on.
27th, I think, is that correct, Terry?
It is the
27th?
27th,
January?
Monday.
What time is the meeting? Does it show?
And it's gonna be here in the commissioner's room, I understand.
Yes, they moved it from third floor
Oh,
down
that's right.
here. 10 a.m.
So we're getting to the critical mass of speak now or forever hold your peace
Yeah.
on phase 2 of Lake Avenue. But that'll be exciting, I think, for everybody involved in that project, hopefully.
are you speaking on behalf of the advisory group, or do you just mean individually people?
don't
to
think
stand up
anybody-
and say-
Individually.
There's no
Individually.
formal.
I don't think there's.
Because this is a meeting where DENREC, I believe, comes and shows, to me, it's more, have y'all ever been to those DENREC
No.
show and tells? To me, it's more of a show and tell than a presentation where they have some easels set up around the room and they have the view of the project itself. They did it for Rehoboth Elementary School, the Cape Henlopen School District did that. And I've been to several others where, big infrastructure projects. And so you can walk around the room, you can see what's really going on. You can question the experts that come.
The engineers
that
are
what
gonna be
it
there,
is?
Kevin,
Yeah.
Sharon, me, yeah, so
But the
you'll have
landscape plan won't be
done
done
now.
at all.
No, but you can actually see how
they're
the
taking out.
space itself is gonna be transformed. So, because it is gonna be significantly different. Or
I mean,
would you
they're-
say?
In terms of, I mean, they're changing the triangle,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
changing the shape of that.
I mean, all I've heard for years is how distasteful folks feel the triangle is. And
mean,
how
that's
it's
a
not
big deal.
attractive, it's not useful, blah, 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 blah. So
Huh.
this will be interesting to
Deal.
me.
So many other
yeah.
priorities,
Yeah.
interesting.
It's very interesting what folks choose to be.
Or at least the people that
Focused
speak
on.
up,
Yeah.
the people that speak up feel.
So, let me just skip down to, committee member comments. Anybody have any final thoughts on this?
Well, I just want to
Terry?
be clear on, in regards to next steps. So,
Yes.
as far as what I can do, I can meet with Chris and update the website on things that have been done. The updated photo of the tree and also the fact that where trees have been planted, because that was part of what we want to put out to the public as far as where their donations have gone.
I think if we want to put out to the public where donations
I
have
mean, on the website,
gone,
on our website.
right, we need to make sure we are absolutely clear with information from Liz.
That's what I was going to coordinate with Liz and Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Can
I
do
think,
that?
I think the perspective of Liz and Chris of whether or not we really want to get that granular would be really helpful.
And we can probably say it in some general way as far as trees
Yeah.
planted or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be really granular.
Yeah.
But at least I think we need to do an update to let people know, yes, we're moving forward
No
with the money you
question,
have.
no
Okay.
question,
No,
because
you
it sets us
see
up.
those type of things, like
Yeah.
funds raised over $20,000, trees planted over 50.
Yeah, exactly.
Number of donors,
Right.
35, or
Exactly.
whatever it may be.
Yeah, because people are interested in that.
Number of hours put in by volunteers, 1 million.
Yes, 1,387,000.
I mean, at our November meeting, I'm just going back in our notes,
Mhm.
we had talked about the brochure and whether or not it needed to be updated. I
Well,
guess it depends. And we talked about that picture of the tree again.
Right.
Well, I think Chris had
Putting
said
it
that
on
we
the
have
back.
1,000 of these
So I just wonder
brochures.
how many we have left.
Yeah,
We
and
have
I-
so many
I
that.
don't know.
As
But
soon
I-
as they
but
run
we-
out, we can talk about
Yeah, we thought
Yeah, that's
about
what we
putting
were
that
talking.
picture.
I've
of
been
the
giving
tree.
mine away to anybody and everybody.
Just been throwing them.
I know.
On Route 1.
I saw you in your car, like, just,
Anybody want a
Traveling
tree brochure?
saleswoman.
Tree brochure? Tree brochure?
You guys should look at the new brochure we did for the tree list. It's in there.
Is it in building and licensing?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
updated tree
And
list.
you'll notice, because it's me, I made them do it on 100% post-consumer.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
You guys will
Oh,
like
hey.
it though, it
Good
came out really
job.
well.
So at our February meeting, what I'm going to focus us on is making sure we make a consensus and a decision of exactly where we're going to put our efforts. This discussion has been very helpful to me as I sit and ponder, just the reality of the budget cycle, the reality of people's time, effort, inclinations, et cetera. So that will be very helpful. Hopefully, we'll pick up our other commissioner as well as, I know that Andrea and Sturgis will be back by that time to give us updates and on Arbor Day. Have they reached out to you yet?
No,
Spunky? Oh,
no.
your name's been brought up too.
Is it really?
Yes, it has.
Years are-
So that should be exciting. So if there's nothing
I have
else
one other
today,
question
yes,
for Liz,
please.
since, and I know Andrea isn't here, but would love an update on the pruning workshop and your thoughts on, was that valuable?
We
How
only had
did
a few.
it turn out?
We only had a few people attend, but they said they loved it. So
And I thought we debriefed that last
Yeah,
time.
we did, at the last meeting.
Yeah.
But Liz wasn't here.
yeah, I haven't been to the last 2 meetings.
Oh, that's right, you didn't make it to the last
Yeah.
one, yes. And I know that Andrea also wants to talk a little bit about education seminars and other activities coming up.
So,
Because I think we need to make a decision at some point, certainly with Liz, if another pruning workshop
we
in the
wanna-
spring makes
right, did we want
sense.
to do it again?
Or not until the fall or whatever that cycle is. Because Elise, I'm glad you brought that up because I keep going back to, at some point this year, I hope that with Chris in communications, that we can actually almost have a calendar of things that we routinely
Yeah.
do as part of Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees, like many organizations do. You know exactly what's coming in the spring and the fall, et
Yeah,
cetera.
no, that'd be great. And Andrea mentioned that there was a PowerPoint, Liz, that you put together on pruning. Is that on our website now? Have we put it on there, or should we?
Would be
mean,
nice.
Well, I think it would be nice.
I would defer to Liz if she thinks that kind of information is helpful.
Or could we get a copy? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I can send it along. It was, if you've ever seen one of my PowerPoints before, I'm more about like pictures in one line and then explaining it. So I don't know how helpful it'll be without me there to
Right.
give my
Does
spiel.
it show you cutting, trimming, actually?
Some of them, yeah, some of the diagrams show it.
Because I think that's helpful. I have to prune in the spring, so I would
Well,
find it
and
helpful.
remember, it was last time, remember we had these documents as well, the tree trimming
That's probably the most helpful,
and the
honestly.
pruning young shade trees.
Yeah.
But how are
Because
these
these are-
available to the
yeah,
public?
yeah, are they available?
Yeah, a lot of them on the website.
So
Are on
maybe
our-
we need
they're
to
on
think
our
about,
website?
Terry, when you talk to
Okay, they're on our
Chris,
website.
if we could post some additional materials or
Yeah, maybe
links
it's
or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that would go to,
Okay.
did you get one of these at our last
I don't
meeting?
know if I have.
The Tree City one is definitely on there. I'm not sure about the card because that's something I got and
I don't know if I
re-photoed.
have.
Like I redid it myself. I
don't think
received
I-
it years ago.
No, I don't
Yeah,
have.
I don't think I ever had
I don't
it.
have
The other
any
thing
of
I would
that.
emphasize too is people proper planting and mulching.
Right.
Everywhere you
We've
look,
talked
there's
about
like
that, yeah.
Trees drowning in mulch. If we could do something in the spring about that. But there again, these are just educational topics.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have that plastic.
No?
I only gave it out at the pruning only to people. You came to the beginning of the pruning.
Oh.
Oh, that's
okay.
why I have it,
Okay.
yes.
I think I have one extra sitting on the, if nobody took it, sitting on the desk at building and licensing.
You
So
want
somebody
this while
can
you
have it.
talk
Well, I was
to-
gonna say, yeah, because I need to meet with Liz and Chris anyway about
Okay,
doing things on the website. Thank you.
thank you for reminding me, Liz, where I got that from.
It took me a minute because
I'm
I've
like,
given
where
them
did I
out.
get that? Yeah.
Because I've given them out before, but
Yeah, those are really good.
it is good.
It is really good.
Yeah, okay. That's good to
Okay,
know there's
so
some on
for the
website.
purposes of today, I think we are as far as we can be.
Are we gonna
Um,
approve minutes?
We do not,
Okay.
not for today, and did
You
you?
can't approve anyway because you don't have a quorum.
Right, we don't, well,
No, Susan's gone
No,
out.
it's-
Susan just left, she was here earlier.
You still don't have a quorum now.
Right, right.
All right.
Can do that next time.
And Joan is gonna take over for 2020 on minutes,
Since you give me a template.
yes. So that'll be very helpful to everybody. So going once, going twice, we are adjourned at 11:13. We will resume in February,
What's the date?
don't know, second Friday as always.
Okay.
In
I knew
February.
that, but I didn't know what date. I'd look at it. I didn't bring my. watch.
And we are concluded.